it just seemed like a salary dump, and that's what the shocking part of it is. But also, let's take a look at this. From a Giants perspective, they have money to spend. People weren't taking their money now that they hit the trade market, and quite frankly, I thought they got a steal. You're talking about a guy that should be good in the major leagues for the next 7 to 8 years in his prime, and the going rate of a salary for a great baseball player from the free agent market, it's $300+ million. That's what San Francisco made out well.
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
What do you make of this price tag here, reportedly, of $1.7 billion for a club that right now technically doesn't even have a home ballpark?
We don't see a lot of teams sold in Major League Baseball. I mean, if you go back to 2020, Steve Cohen bought the New York Mets for $2.4 billion. The only team sold since then was the Orioles last year, also for around $1.7 billion.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
It was the first time, I think, in Dodgers history that the ballpark was full in the first inning. Everybody was there to see Shohei Ohtani throw his first pitch as a Dodger, and I had mixed emotions about this for a few reasons. Number one, it was a reminder of, wow, this is so crazy, right? You're watching him hit 98, 99, even 100 on the radar gun going, this guy's not human. Nobody should be able to be this good of a hitter or this good of a pitcher.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
I can't even believe I'm saying pitcher's battle and using the words Patrick Corbin. But can I tell you, Scotty, he's a different guy. He's a totally different guy with the Rangers than we've seen.
I say this all the time. Don't worry about the first 5 innings. Like, don't even watch the first 5 innings in Texas Ranger games. Because for whatever reason, there's a ton of runs scored in the first 5, and then it just stops. It just stops.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Hey everyone, welcome to NewsWire. Adam Kaufman in for Craig Mish today and the rest of the week. We have a ton coming up for you over the course of the next 60 minutes. We will, of course, talk some Major League Baseball, get into some of the latest involving the NFL, and it's getting a little spicy. It's not just OTAs and looking ahead to training camps and the regular season and all that comes with that. Collusion may be in our midst, and so we will address that as well. But we have to begin with the NBA, where depending on how late you were up last night, this came down just after 11:30 Eastern. Many of you, I suspect, were in bed and you have read about it since this morning. Of course, the NBA draft, that is upon us starting tomorrow with round 1, but it's trade season. The Boston Celtics and the Portland Trail Blazers reminded us of that. With free agency right around the corner, trades are going to be made, especially among teams like the Celtics, trying to free up salary, retool, absent Jason Tatum. They sent Jrue Holiday, a 2-time champion, 6-time all-defensive team player, a multiple-time sportsman of the year, teammate of the year, back to the Blazers, where he didn't actually play when they got him originally a couple of years back. That was the Robert Williams deal, as I'm sure a lot of people out there will remember, kind of a paper transaction after he had come over from Milwaukee in the Damian Lillard deal. Well, now seems Jrue Holiday may play for Portland for real. He goes over there. Anthony Simons, the 20-point-per-game scorer, goes the other way to Boston. It's a really, really interesting trade on kind of both sides of the ledger when it comes to this. For the Celtics, again, retooling. That's the name of the game. We talked about it even a little bit yesterday with Coach James Young, that there is going to be some movement for the Celtics who try to get themselves back into the contender conversation in a wide open Eastern Conference, knowing that they are in all likelihood not going to have their superstar Jason Tatum this year, but also trying to get themselves below that second apron in the NBA. Now, does Holiday do that and moving him off the books and bringing in Simons? No, but it's a move in the right direction. It unloads Holiday's roughly $100 million in remaining contract out the door. He goes obviously over to Portland. You bring in Simons, who, in terms of just this upcoming season, he is an expiring deal, makes about $5 million less than Holiday, and so Celtics still about $18 million over on that second apron, but it's a gigantic tax savings of about $40 million. So Celtics able to get Simons, a elite volume three-point shooter, which fits in really well in Joe Mazzulla's system, obviously, and a secondary scorer to Jaylen Brown, presuming that both of these guys are on the roster when the season begins, which is no guarantee in and of itself. Celtics also acquire a couple of future second-round picks as assets in the deal that they could potentially spin off elsewhere. But this continues the conversation as to, will Kristaps Porzingis be dealt? Will Sam Hauser be dealt? Will Al Horford or Luke Cornett be retained? Are the Celtics, in fact, listening on Jaylen Brown or Derek White? So there's a lot still to unfold for Boston. As for Portland, you might be thinking why the Blazers do this. Well, again, we talk about all the different awards, accolades, leadership that come along with Drew Holiday, who is just the, poster child for model NBA citizen. He comes in, and it's great leadership in the locker room. He is still, even at 35 years old, a very good, maybe not quite elite anymore, but very good defensive player for a Blazers team that was top 5 defensively in the NBA in the second half of last year, so they can build upon that. But also, in removing Simons from the equation, you open up a door in terms of opportunity for Shaedon Sharpe, for Scoot Henderson, to see, before you give these guys big money deals going forward, potentially anyway, how good they actually are. And so Holiday, in terms of maybe mentoring those guys a little bit, but also just their sheer opportunity increasing without Simons hogging a lot of the shot volume, it's an interesting move for Portland as well. But listen, there are a lot of people out there in the NBA community that are not certain that Simons is going to be on Boston opening night or that Holiday is going to be on the Blazers opening night. So there's still moves potentially to be made. Another team that could be thinking about moves, of course, the Indiana Pacers, because Tyrese Halliburton is, in all likelihood, much like Tatum, much like Lillard, done for this upcoming season. He did undergo Achilles surgery to repair that, and so as far as the timetable, we don't know. It's a guessing game. Will depend, obviously, on his rehab repairing that torn Achilles. But put out a lengthy, we won't show it to you, read it to you. It's very long, but I do encourage people to check it out. Lengthy statement on social media about how he wouldn't change anything, continuing to fight through the injury, get out there on the floor, participate in that Game 7 before this injury came along after the previous one. It does open up a conversation, a commonality between Lillard, Tatum, and Halliburton, Durant in the past, others. Is there a direct medical correlation to calf strains that lead to ruptured or torn Achilles? That's something the NBA is certainly going to have to continue to look at going forward. But Halliburton, keeping a good head on his shoulders, but it's, again, just a devastating blow to the Indiana Pacers, who have been so good over the last couple of seasons. Now, I mentioned with the NFL the possible collusion in the midst. In a report from both, a joint report from Mike Florio, Pro Football Talk, and also Pablo Torre from Meadowlark Media. You can see it on your screen. The NFL and the NFLPA managed to conceal a landmark ruling in a collusion case against the league for more than 5 months. These guys both got their hands on the 61-page document. The short end of this, and we can explore it a little bit later on as well with our guest, is essentially in the wake of the 2022 fully guaranteed landmark deal that Deshaun Watson signed with the Cleveland Browns. There were then backdoor conversations, very high profile, involving Commissioner Roger Goodell, involving multiple star quarterbacks in the league, Lamar Jackson and Russell Wilson among them, high profile agents, upwards of 10 owners. This evident proof of collusion, the league, or at least the league conspiring with the ownership, telling all of the 32 teams working together to limit the guarantees of contracts going forward for its veteran players. So essentially, you could not see another deal that looked like that of Deshaun Watson, and people like Lamar Jackson, like Russell Wilson, among others, have felt the effects of it. Again, this goes back to 2022. The details only just now coming out, which is pretty incredible. And again, we will explore that. Major League Baseball, the Mets continue to absolutely stink. Losers of 9 out of 10. Atlanta Braves, led by Spencer Schwellenbach, 7 innings, a comfortable win. Ronald Acuna Jr. with a home run there in that game. Carlos Mendoza, who is the manager of the Mets, he's frustrated.
Carlos, overall during the stretch, what do you make of the offensive struggles that you guys have had?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of a lot of things, especially when you're chasing a lot. And it feels like during this stretch, we're getting down early in games, and then the at-bats are pretty much completely different. Whether you're spending a lot of times on defense, and then you want to give your starter a little bit of a break, and then they're getting ahead of you, and then we're obviously not creating enough traffic. And I feel like, it's the reality. Once the bottom of the lineup, we're having a hard time creating opportunities, like we're relying pretty much on the top 4 or 5 guys. And then if those guys in the bottom are not able to get on base, that's why we're having a hard time scoring runs right now.
So while the Mets struggle in the NL East, over in the NL Central, the Cardinals continue to thrive. Winners of 5 out of 6, thumped the Cubs 8-2, 4 home runs for St. Louis in that game. Bats are raking right now for the Cards. And the American League East, the Yankees, they got another home run from the expected MVP, Aaron Judge. Thing is, that's the only run that the Yankees got. It was the Reds, Ellie De La Cruz leading the way, 6-1 win there for Cincinnati at home. Nice victory. The Red Sox, ugly game. Walker Buehler, he walked 7, hit 2. Sox ultimately fell 9-5 to the Angels to open up that series. We'll get back to basketball. Gil McGregor is going to join us when we come back.
We are seeing unbelievable temperature surges over the past couple of days. So I wanted to ask you this question to let the people know, how do we account for that in our handicapping? 2 good pitchers on the mound, but you look at a place like Wrigley Field, let's just say, 20-mile-an-hour winds blowing out, 90-plus degree temperatures. Is it almost like you say to yourself, you just have to fade the environment and not worry about the pitchers, because if we're hitting fly balls, they're going yard?
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
Their team total is 19.5 wins. I told you to go under, and it's by far the best bet I have recommended on this network in 4 years. They can't get out of their own way. And now Sloot is out for the year. Let's hope Sloot gets back, because I respect the hell out of Sloot, and I want her to go out on her own terms. Hopefully we'll have her back for the 26th season.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
Kevin Durant, at the age of 36 years old, after 17 seasons that he has played in the NBA DRS, is now on his way to H-Town.
I don't think it's a great move. I wanted him to go to a ready-made championship team full of a veteran roster and see if he can ring chase that way. Not to go to an organization on the come-up that if you just stay the course, and also, what better blueprint do we have than just staying the course and safe, right?
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid. The game is on. The stakes are high, but the action isn't just on the field.
He's rearranging that rim. Get it inside!
SportsGrid's in-game live. Your ultimate second screen experience.
A little flyer, couple of
15.5-point live line.
Every prop, every play, every day.
Anything can happen. It's complete chaos.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
We're back on NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Smarter to be on SportsGrid, and hopefully over the course of this hour, we're proving that to you. Make sure you stay tuned to SportsGrid programming throughout the day as well. Here to help us sound a lot smarter than I do on my own is Gilbert McGregor, who, of course, is from Sporting News, a regular here on the program. Get him on Twitter at Gil McGregor with an underscore at the end there. Gil, how are you?
I'm doing great. Ready for the offseason to begin. I guess I have no choice to be ready for the offseason to begin. We got the draft tomorrow. I think trades going on over the weekend.
Right, between Kevin Durant getting moved to Houston, of course, the Celtics and Blazers trade last night, the draft tomorrow. I think we're underway, and free agency is right around the corner as well. It's not out of the norm for Brad Stevens and the Celtics in his tenure as president of basketball operations to make these late June trades and notable ones at that. Were you taken aback, though, late last night when word came down that Drew Holiday was sent back to Portland, that Anthony Simons was the one who came over to Boston, and that the Celtics were able to get a couple of assets in the process?
A little surprised, about the timing of it, more so the fact that it happened so late last night. But obviously, the clock never stops when you're getting deals done, especially in the NBA. But the timing of it does make sense when you really think about it. Make this deal before the draft, understand what you need going into the NBA draft. And also, I know there's definitely a financial aspect and component for it with the Celtics as well. So, I figured Drew Holiday was probably going to be on his way out. He's 35 years old. He's making a ton of money over the next few seasons, but didn't necessarily know it would go down the way it did.
So the Celtics right now 16-1 on FanDuel to win the championship, plus 550 to win the Eastern Conference. Far cry from their odds over the last couple of years coming into seasons. The big reason for that, of course, is no Jason Tatum. The expectation he is not going to play after his Achilles injury this entire upcoming season. So the East is wide open. If we have time, we can explore that a little further. But in the West, man, it's a race to the top, but there's so much competition. The Thunder, the defending champs, we can look at their odds. They right now, are plus 210 to win the championship. You see Cleveland right behind them in New York, so a couple of those teams in the East. But is this the NBA's next dynasty, the Thunder, knowing that they are still so young with an average age of 25 and change, only a couple players that are even older than 27?
It's hard to say that they aren't going to be a dynasty if there's going to be one. We haven't seen one in a while, 7 different champions in 7 years, and that's for a reason, the way the NBA is set up these days. But the Thunder are the standard that teams are going to follow now. They're young, they can play quickly, and they have a bunch of assets to continue to kind of address some of the needs. And they weren't a perfect team. It took them 7 games to win the finals, took them 7 games to win the semifinals, but they picked 15th in this year's draft. They're trying to move in to the top 10 of this year's draft as well. They have a player, Nikola Topic, who didn't play this past year, who's joining them next year, and he is a top 5 level talent as far as the draft class last year. So the Thunder are set up for success. A lot of teams said the same thing about the Celtics last year. So the games have to be played, teams have to stay healthy, but I feel like they're in a great position to do it again next year.
SGA, the MVP, Jalen Williams, and Chet Holmgren are all going to get paid as well. So, eventually OKC is going to run into some of these salary issues that teams like the Celtics have. If we go back to that odds board, though, to look at champions, you alluded to it. We're in the era of parity in the NBA. As a matter of fact, in Adam Silver's dozen years, there have been 9 champions, which is just, it's incredible. And the impact of the second apron forcing teams to sell off is only going to make that, you would think, a more and more regular occurrence. And so that being said, if it's not the Thunder, where would you put your money going into this year, at least based on what we know right now, because a lot can change between now and opening night?
It's a great point. I do think when you look at the Rockets, right, I think they're not done getting Kevin Durant, adding him to that team, who he addresses a big need that they had. I think this past year, the Pacers run reminds us that you shouldn't write anybody off. And if from that kind of fun angle of teams to pick, the Magic, they kind of have a similar blueprint than what the Thunder have, right? Young players, Paolo Banchero, Franz Wagner, 2 guys, answering a big need by bringing in Desmond Bane and then getting Jalen Suggs back into the lineup. He was injured this past year and missed this past postseason. The Magic are going to be a fun team in a wide open Eastern Conference. I think that they could make a Pacers-like run to an NBA Finals next year. A lot has to go their way, but they're capable of doing it.
So I don't know if I was just kind of a curmudgeon about the whole thing or if I should feel validated and proven right. But the Houston Rockets last year, despite all of their regular season success and finishing second in the Western Conference, they're just a team, and they played hard. Like, they were fun to watch, but I never really looked at them as having a championship ceiling. I was not the least bit surprised when they went out in round 1. I just thought they were playing over their heads all year long. So they move off Jalen Green, they move off Dillon Brooks, they bring in Kevin Durant, who's up there in age at this point, even though he's still one of the better players in the league, but he is 37 years old. What does he do to this team in terms of making people like me, maybe even you, I don't know, take them more seriously?
I think it's a steadying force that they have, right? Because I think the issue that they had, especially we saw that in that Warriors series, they didn't have that consistent option offensively. And Jalen Green had one really good game in that series, and he has a lot of talent on the offensive end. But when you get to the playoffs and things slow down a little bit, you need a guy who you can put the ball in his hands and he can go make a play for you. And for everything that Kevin Durant is not anymore in his older age, he is still that. He played at an all-star level, all-NBA level, would have gotten an all-NBA nod last year had he played in enough games. You can still chalk him in for 25 points a night, and that helps him a lot. That'll open the floor up for a lot of other players as well. I personally am a big believer in Amin Thompson. I think that he's a year or two away from becoming that guy. But I think getting Kevin Durant kind of bridges the gap and allows the Rockets to be a contender here in the next season and a half or two.
Gil, it's a longer conversation, but we can start it at least. You know, people look at Jason Tatum, Tyrese Halliburton, Damian Lillard all suffering these Achilles injuries in the postseason and saying, they all wore the number 0. Who's living in fear? Who's wearing 0 going forward? That's a fluky thing. The thing that might not be fluky is, does the league and its medical staffs have to take a real look at the potential correlation between calf strains and Achilles injuries, and one following the other? Because we talked about Kevin Durant, we saw that with Durant years ago when he then missed the season. Is this a problem going forward?
Absolutely. I saw somebody say that we need to treat these with a certain protocol to really just kind of make sure guys are able to come back on the floor without risking anything else. And I thought immediately back to Kevin Durant. I remember Giannis Antetokounmpo ended up sitting out with a calf strain. So I think moving forward, that susceptibility that comes with calf strains, I think guys should really take it easy because it's really not worth missing an entire season, regardless of what's at stake.
Gilbert McGregor is on Twitter at Gil McGregor with an _. He is from Sporting News, a regular here on NewsWire. Gil, always appreciate it. Get a little rest before tomorrow, huh?
I'll try.
We are seeing unbelievable temperature surges over the past couple of days. So I wanted to ask you this question to let the people know, how do we account for that in our handicapping? 2 good pitchers on the mound, but you look at a place like Wrigley Field, let's just say, 20-mile-an-hour winds blowing out, 90-plus degree temperatures. Is it almost like you say to yourself, you just have to fade the environment and not worry about the pitchers, because if we're hitting fly balls, they're going yard?
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
Their team total is 19.5 wins. I told you to go under, and it's by far the best bet I have recommended on this network in 4 years. They can't get out of their own way. And now Sloot is out for the year. Let's hope Sloot gets back, because I respect the hell out of Sloot, and I want her to go out on her own terms. Hopefully we'll have her back for the 26th season.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
Kevin Durant, at the age of 36 years old, after 17 seasons that he has played in the NBA DRS, is now on his way to H-Town.
I don't think it's a great move. I wanted him to go to a ready-made championship team full of a veteran roster and see if he can ring chase that way. Not to go to an organization on the come-up that if you just stay the course, and also, what better blueprint do we have than just staying the course than OKC, right?
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid. The game is on. The stakes are high, but the action isn't just on the field.
He's rearranging that roof. Get it inside!
SportsGrid's in-game live. Your ultimate second screen experience.
A little flyer, couple of
15.5-point live line.
Every prop, every play, every day.
Anything can happen. It's complete chaos.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
We're back on NewsWire. Our thanks to Gil McGregor. We stay with the hardwood, but this time we go to the women, and we bring in Calvin Wetzel, who is part of the Bet She Wins Discord, as well as the podcast, part of CBS Sports, among other outlets covering women's sports. Calvin, good to see you.
Hey, good to see you. How's it going?
Good. So after an off night in the W, we got 4 games ahead of us today, and I think the most, look, maybe I'm just sort of playing into exactly what the WNBA doesn't want me to play into, but the most interesting, the most exciting is obviously the one that involves Caitlin Clark. And so the Indiana Fever, they are in action tonight. It's should be a fun one in Seattle. We've seen a lot of line movement on this. At one point, it opened. Indiana was a 1.5 favorite. It swung considerably to Seattle, sitting as now a 3.5 home favorite in this contest. What do you make of the game, and what props are you looking at?
Yeah, well, I did like Seattle as dogs, or even at I didn't get them right away. I got them at -1.5. I still liked them there. At this point, I probably wouldn't still play it after this movement. I'd still kind of lean that way. The Fever are on the end of a West Coast road trip, and we know, whether you're talking NBA, WNBA, when teams go on that week plus long road trip, that by the time you get to the end, your legs are tired, you're gassed. But I do think that the line has moved appropriately towards the Storm. So I would be maybe looking to kind of bet on the Storm in other ways. Like you mentioned, the prop market, you could bet on the Storm defense. I actually like Caitlin Clark's under and assists at 9.5 against that defense. She didn't clear that any of the games against them last year, and their defense has stepped up even more this year. Or you could go with, on the other side, Nneka Ogwumike for the Storm over 16.5 points. That's one I like a lot as well. If you want to bet on the Storm, I would definitely be looking to bet on kind of Storm overs and Fever unders, because I lean towards the Storm still. And those would be probably two specific ones that I'm looking to target.
A lot can happen, Calvin, with a couple months still to go in the regular season. But as we look at it right now, the MVP race it's a two-horse race. It's Caitlin Clark, who I mentioned, who's, the slight dog by comparison, plus 260, still well ahead of her competition for anyone behind her. But the favorite, as people see it on their screens, it's Napheesa Collier at -320. Is there value in Clark right now, or dare I say, one of these, 50-1 or so on long shots?
Yeah, I don't think there's a lot of value in Clark at this point. She could win it, certainly, but plus 260 isn't quite long enough for me. When she has missed 5 games, of course, Collier's missed a couple as well, and is questionable tonight. So if she continues to miss some games, then you might start look at them being a little bit more even in that department. But for now, no WNBA MVP has ever missed more than 5 games. So Caitlin Clark's already right there. And if Collier does come back tonight and hopefully stays healthy the rest of the season, she's going to have that advantage. In terms of the standings, team success obviously plays into this a lot with the voters. The Lynx have 1 loss. They're first in the standings. The Fever are still around 500, trying to play catch up after taking some of those losses early, and including the last couple games on this road trip that I mentioned. So I do think that Collier is pretty clearly the favorite correctly. And unless she starts to miss more time, I probably wouldn't be looking anywhere else.
This game has the biggest spread on the board, with the Lynx, Collier's team, a 9.5 point favorite. Now, that line would indicate Collier is going to play in this game tonight, because obviously it will drop considerably if she doesn't. From what I've read, maybe as many as 6 points, get down to around -3, somewhere in that vicinity. So is this a wait and see for you? Do you have to wait and have all the news before you want to invest in this game? Or with the uncertainty, are there places around Collier that you could potentially take advantage? Or even just looking at it and saying, I'll take Washington with the points because there are so many?
Yeah, that's actually what I would do right now. Now, ideally, you would wait and get the news, but sportsbooks these days are pretty quick to adjust on news. You're not going to have very much time to get a bet in before the line moves. This line was 6.5, and it's been creeping up to 9.5, which, like you said, implies that Collier is going to play. This line should be pretty close. Maybe it'll move to 10.5 if she's ruled in, but the market seemed to think she's going to play. I think it's more like 50-50. So I do think there's value in Washington, and Washington's been a pretty competitive team this year, all things considered, with Kiki Iriafen and Sonia Citron have been outstanding rookies, and Brittany Sykes in the running for most improved. So I think 9.5 is a lot of points. And if you're going to play it before the news, that's the side that you have to go, I think.
What do you suppose Minnesota's ceiling is, very quickly, before we let you go?
National, championship, league championship. They were right there, overtime game 5 last year. And I think this year they could easily get over that hump.
Calvin Wetzel is on Twitter at CWetzel31, again from CBS Sports, from Bet She Wins, from Her Hoop Stats. You got so many outlets, it would take another full segment just to recite them all. Calvin, thanks, man. Enjoy the game tonight.
On June 25th at 7:30 p.m., ditch the guesswork. Ben Stevens, Kevin Walsh, James Young, and Tom Vecchio have your NBA draft betting coverage pick by pick, bet by bet, all night long. We got all the insights and expert analysis, because betting blind isn't a strategy. Coverage starts at 7:30 p.m. on June 25th, only on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results.
What? How do you do this one?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Dialing it back to his old days with St. Louis and Arizona. Buy or sell, Goldie will finish top 7 in fantasy first baseman.
No, I'm going to say no. I think he'll fall off. Older player here, he'll be top 10, but not top 7 here. Top 10, I would say I'd buy it. Top 7, I'm going to say no here. I think he'll put up decent numbers here. Not as good as he was. I don't think he's going to bat 340, 350 all year long.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on
Every 5 days, it's really exciting when Skeens pitches. And it's terrible watching him pitch because every time he pitches, they don't score.
Having him hit the lineup probably would actually help when he pitches. There's no way to do it because you can't. But, yeah, it's beyond frustrating. And the numbers will tell you, the books have adjusted.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
From basketball to football, let us bring in Jacob Camenker on Twitter at that very same name from USA Today, helping us take a look at what we have in front of us, of course, with the NFL season, but also reacting to the big story that broke this morning from, again, Pablo Torre and Mike Florio with NFL collusion dating back to 2022 in the wake of a landmark deal, fully guaranteed, signed by the Browns quarterback Deshaun Watson, and leading to teams basically colluding together, Jacob, and saying, for these veterans going forward, we got to reduce these guarantees. So, look, big deal. 60-plus page document has come out. What were your reflections when you heard the news and what you've thought about since?
Yeah, so my first thought was I wasn't overly surprised by this, right? We saw the Deshaun Watson deal come down. It'd be fully guaranteed. There was a lot of shockwaves about that through the media ecosystem and the NFL ecosystem as well, with people wondering, hey, are these deals going to ever become fully guaranteed now that this guy who hasn't played in a few years is getting a full guarantee? And we never saw that come to fruition. We saw teams sort of hardlining guys. Yeah, they're getting $100 million guarantees, especially at quarterback, but there never fully came those fully guaranteed long-term deals. So I wasn't overly surprised when I saw the news, but anytime you get proof of something in writing and through documents, it's obviously a big deal, and it will be interesting to see how the NFL responds to this, and whether or not the players will be able to argue, hey, you've been holding out some guarantees from us now, let's get a higher percentage of that guaranteed moving forward. So definitely a big story to watch, and I'll be interested to see how it develops.
There are always big stories surrounding another veteran, Aaron Rodgers, who is, look, I don't know. Going year to year, obviously, at this stage of his career, how much does he have left in the tank? Should he even be playing for Pittsburgh this year? Sort of depends who you ask. But this is a new-look Steelers team. Between Rodgers, the acquisition of DK Metcalf, obviously, you've got some interesting holdovers there between Jalen Warren, Pat Freiermuth, in a very competitive AFC North. I think the general expectation is, well, this is Baltimore's division to lose, obviously. Hell, it might be Baltimore's Super Bowl or Baltimore's conference to lose. But then you have Cincinnati, who everyone expects a bounce back from with all that talent, especially on offense. So where do the Steelers, led by Rodgers, led by Mike Tomlin, who just always seems to overachieve with his teams, where do they fit into this?
It's hard not to put them in that number 2 slot for the reasons that you've outlined, in the division at least. You have the Ravens there. They're a well-rounded team. Lamar Jackson is playing at the highest level of his career. Could easily have won MVP last year. And frankly, if he hadn't won it the year before, I think it would have been more of a shoe-in situation for him, given the numbers he posted and the record he led the team to. So I think as long as Jackson's playing at that high level and the Ravens still have a quality defense, it's going to be very hard to unseat them. The question becomes, will the Bengals challenge the Ravens or will it be the Steelers? I think the Steelers might be the safer bet right now for some of the reasons you outlined. Tomlin always gets the most out of this team. And Rodgers is, despite being older, despite, having that Achilles tear a couple years ago, he is still the best quarterback they have had since Ben Roethlisberger's prime. So you're kind of asking yourself, what can he achieve in this? If he can just play at the level he played last year, in the second half of the year, I think the Steelers are going to be much better for it. And the Bengals, that defense just still looks like an issue. Their first-round pick, Shamar Stewart, still hasn't signed amid a contract dispute with the team. The longer that goes on, the less likely that defense is to improve. And the Bengals have proven they can outscore teams, but if you're playing a game where you have to win 35-31 every week, odds are you're not going to be above third place in a division that strong. So I still think the pecking order is Ravens, Steelers, Bengals. But the Bengals, if that defense gets figured out, look out. They're going to be hard to beat.
So as we look at those division odds, then, is there value to you in betting the Steelers at 5-1 to win the division, or do you just think this is so clearly Baltimore's that you wouldn't waste the money? Instead, maybe a better way to bet it is either going over on the win total or to make the playoffs, something like that.
Yeah, I think to make the playoffs for the Steelers would be the safest bet, but I don't mind betting them at 5-1 there because, like I said, I think the Bengals could challenge, but their defense is the worst unit among the top three teams. If you're breaking down all the units there, their defense has the most questions. And we've seen this before. A team like the Ravens, yeah, if they stay healthy, they should be good. They should win this division. But all it takes is a couple injuries to set that defense back, or, if Lamar Jackson has to miss a couple games, that could end up giving the Steelers an advantage. So a team that's as well coached as the Steelers with a strong defense at 5-1 odds, I'm willing to give that a shot.
Pittsburgh plus 146 on FanDuel to make the playoffs, for people out there wondering. Let's go over to the AFC West, where, look, you got a couple of really good coaches in Sean Payton and Jim Harbaugh, with the Broncos and Chargers respectively. Obviously, two teams that both went 10-7 last year, both made the playoffs, both lost in the wild card round, both in blowouts. The Broncos fell to the Bills by 24 points, the Chargers to the Texans by 20 points. And so how do they build off of those defeats, but overachieving probably in a lot of people's eyes and taking that into the new season?
Yeah, I think both of these teams have to have been happy with the performance they got last year. The Broncos snapped a 9-year playoff drought, and Jim Harbaugh just got the Chargers back to the level they need to be on when they have Justin Herbert. I think if you're looking at these two teams and you're asking yourself which one of these could really challenge the Chiefs in this division, which granted might not actually happen. Andy Reid's too good of a coach. Patrick Mahomes is a great quarterback. It's going to be very hard for them to get unseated. But I look at the Broncos. They had the top defense last year in defensive EPA, and they added Talanoa Hufanga, Dre Greenlaw, and Jahdae Barron, three players who I absolutely love, to that stop unit. They're going to have one of the best defenses in the league, and they're going to be able to give teams a lot of fits. So if you look at it from that standpoint and say, hey, Bo Nix in his second season might take a step forward, I think Sean Payton and this Broncos team could end up being more threatening than people are sort of realizing. This isn't a situation where we're going to write off and say, all right, the AFC West is definitely going to the Chiefs. They're still the team to beat there. But if you look at the Broncos on the come up, they're looking pretty appetizing. And then the Chargers there too. They are still rebuilding their team in Jim Harbaugh's image, I believe. And I think they'll complete that process after this upcoming season. But they're going to be very threatening. And if Justin Herbert can be as efficient as he was last year, they are going to be very good as well. So I think that division is going to be a lot of fun to watch. And don't sleep on the Raiders, being better with Geno Smith at quarterback. He gives them some stability that they just didn't have at the position last year. They're still fourth in the pecking order there, but, should be a competitive and fun division to watch.
Kansas City has won the West 9 straight years, and so we can look at the odds to win that division. All those teams obviously just, ran through them, but who do you give the best chance to sort of, achieve the impossible and knock off Kansas City in that division?
I think it has to be the Broncos solely because of the defense. If you have a defense that can get pressure without having to blitz and really just be able to cover all of Patrick Mahomes' weapons well, we have seen that formula in the past be able to beat him. Now, the Broncos aren't going to be at like the Eagles level where they're getting relentless pressure behind the Chiefs offensive line, which is retooled going into this year, but I think the Broncos have the best chance of doing it just because of their defense combination. Now, I understand if you're not a believer in Bo Nix, it might be hard to kind of take that Broncos bandwagon and sell you on it. But if you can just convince yourself that, hey, Bo Nix, if he can take another step forward and just be efficient and they can run the ball better than they did last year, then this could end up being a pretty good team. And I think with RJ Harvey and J.K. Dobbins there to help out Bo Nix a little more, that Broncos offense should be better balanced. So I'm excited to see what they can achieve this year. I think they're going to be pretty good. I don't know that they'll win the division, but those plus 340 odds look like a decent bet to me.
Before we let you go here, the NFC North is a fascinating division. Obviously, you know, the four teams in that grouping in the regular season last year went 45-23, but in the playoffs, 0-3. Who's most likely to get over the hump in the new year?
I have to say, I like the Minnesota Vikings. I know they have a question with J.J. McCarthy, but Kevin O'Connell's a great coach. If he can get him to play at the same level as Sam Darnold or even a little bit lower, that roster can carry them to a playoff berth and potentially a division win.
Jacob Camenker from, again, USA Today. Get him on Twitter at that very same name. Jacob, thanks so much for hopping on, man. We'll talk soon.
On June 25th at 7:30 p.m., ditch the guesswork. Ben Stevens, Kevin Walsh, James Young, and Tom Vecchio have your NBA draft betting coverage pick by pick, bet by bet, all night long. We got all the insights and expert analysis because betting blind isn't a strategy. Coverage starts at 7:30 p.m. on June 25th, only on SportsGrid.
Was the first time, I think, in Dodgers history that the ballpark was full in the first inning. Everybody was there to see Shohei Ohtani throw his first pitch as a Dodger, and I had mixed emotions about this for a few reasons. Number one, it was a reminder of, wow, this is so crazy, right? You're watching him hit 98, 99, even 100 on the radar gun going, this guy's not human. Nobody should be able to be this good of a hitter or this good of a pitcher.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
As we know, it's just we enter every year and it's, is this the Ravens' time? Is this Lamar Jackson's turn? Can they get past the Chiefs and all of these other, you know, stalwarts of the AFC? But it's always really about Kansas City when we're talking Baltimore.
This potentially, Adam, as I send it back to you, potentially is a game changer in that you get a very talented quarter at a discount price.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
Oklahoma City now becomes one of 4 NBA teams ever, one of 3 NBA champs ever, to win at least 84 total regular season and postseason games.
It's just the beginning, Ben, and you just look at a team with, you know, these guys at such a young age, and, you know, Chet's got a team option, Ismail Dieng has a team option, Jalen Williams team option, Keyshawn Wallace team option. Hey, Ben, they're all coming back.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
All right, the marathon of guests continues. We bring in our last one, but you know what? We're fond of him, and he's a regular here on SportsGrid, a host and analyst, Joe Pisapia. You can get him on Twitter, by the way, at Joe Pisapia, and the number 17. Joe, how's it going?
Good. I'm glad we're still calling it Twitter, too, because I don't know. What do I do on X? It's not a tweet. Please. What the hell is it? I don't even... Am I Xing? Am I tweeting? I'm too old for this stuff, nope. Adam. You got to keep it simple for me.
Tell me about it. I took TikTok off my phone. I just couldn't even do it anymore. There's plenty to doom scroll to go around. I don't need to have a multitude of apps to be able to do it. So you know what? That might, a little doom scrolling might do the Mets some good, because they are in a dire place right now as an organization, losing 9 of 10. This latest loss to the Braves, you know, is 3-2. Schwellenbach was awesome, obviously. I was asked just days ago, when the skid was sitting at 7 before the Mets managed to win a game, is this concerning? Do we have to worry about this? My feeling was not yet, because it's still not even the All-Star break. We're still in the first half of the season, and they're still obviously in a playoff position. But you start to make it 9 of 10. Maybe it gets worse today. When do we get concerned?
Well, you could take out the maybe it gets worse today. It definitely gets worse today, because Frankie Montas returns. Oh, Frankie Montas, who in 18 innings in his rehab start has given up 8 home runs and has a 12 ERA. So my favorite bet for today, of course, is to take the team total for the Atlanta Braves. Let's go over on the 4.5 at -132. Heck, if you want to push it to the 5.5 at +128, I like that too. But I just see no way we're not getting to 4 or 5 runs at minimum here, if not 6 or 7 from the Braves, the way Montas is pitched. Plus, you're going to get into that bullpen. It's already been a little taxed recently as well. Look, the Mets are in a tough spot here. Atlanta has always given them problems historically. Trust me, I'm a Met fan. I've lived it my entire life. Ronald Acuna has been absolutely on fire. All of his props are on the table today, 100%. Him, Ozuna to drive in a run, you're getting plus money there. I love that. But overall right now, the Mets, look, as good as that pitching was the first couple months of the season, and it was the best in baseball, let's not forget, eventually you knew it was going to come back down to earth a little bit. There was no way Clay Holmes, Griffin Canning, and all these guys were going to sustain. Now, David Peterson's been very good. Senga's been very good. But when he had the injuries to McGill and Senga in this rotation, all of a sudden now you had to go a little bit deeper into the Blackburns of the world and some other guys. So that was bound to happen here for the Mets. The good news, if you're a Mets fan, is they have the capital in prospects to go out there and make a move for a Sandy Alcantara. They can go out there and make a move for a big bullpen arm if they want to add something. And I think they do. With the looming CBA in a couple years, you know there's going to be some games missed most likely in 2027. I think Steve Cohen's going to go all in here. And I think this is a key time here for the Mets to hopefully just get to the All-Star break as much intact as they can. There's still 13 games over 500. They're still going to be very much in this thing with the Phillies. I've been telling everybody about the Braves for weeks now. The Chris Sale injury kind of throws a wrench into that one, though, Adam. I think that's something, unfortunately, where his Cy Young hopes might be dashed now because he's going to miss too much time, unfortunately. But when you get Sale and Strider and everybody pitching better here, all of a sudden now with Ronald Acuna back, the Braves are definitely a playoff contender still. But today, go against the Mets as hard as you can, because the Braves bats are going to hit Frankie Montas as hard as they can.
We could look at some futures odds in this division. You mentioned another freak injury with the fractured rib to Chris Sale, and just a long list of them over the last handful of years. But man, it's just the Mets are obviously, not that they've chosen it, but as the expression goes, picking the worst time to play their worst ball, with Philadelphia essentially doing the opposite. Phillies 8-10 over their last 10 as compared to that Mets 1-9. And the Braves, while they got off to that horrid start, which is why they're 10.5 out, are 7-3 over their last 10. So are we going to get a pennant race? Are we going to get a playoff chase within this division with the wild card standings factoring in as well for the Braves?
I don't know. I think with the Chris Sale injury now, I would say no. I don't think they're in on the East, but I still like them at plus money to make the playoffs. I bet the Phillies in the beginning of the year to win this division, and I'm going to stay on that because I thought they had the biggest depth of rotation there. And I've been proven right, because even with Aaron Nola out, McAble's been there. At some point, you're going to see Painter eventually, I think, in this rotation too. If there is another injury, you see Luzardo bouncing back. That was a good sign here after a couple rocky starts in the last 6 weeks or so. But look, the Phillies, I think, are the one that's built for the long haul. The Mets right now, what they've got to do is they've got to probably go out there and acquire another starting pitcher, because when you get into that short series, you want to have somebody else besides Senga that you can count on. Now, the good news is they're getting Sean Manaea back. You can count on him. So adding one more elite level starter, I think, could make a huge difference. The problem is, with expanded playoffs, everybody is still holding on. Well, we're only this many games out of the wild card. We're only that many games out of the wild card. And some of those expectations are very unrealistic, like Arizona Diamondbacks, for instance. They keep losing Corbin Carroll. They lose Corbin Burns. Everyone named Corbin, they're losing right now. And I think that this is a problem here, because you've got a situation where teams really should be realistic in what their hopes and aspirations are this year, and they should be sellers. And the Phillies still have a huge hole at the back of that bullpen, which is Jose Alvarado, gone for 80 games. You don't have him from the playoffs. Kirkering right now kind of getting the saves, but they need somebody, whether it's Batista from Baltimore, whether it's Yohan Duran from Minnesota. Somebody's got to come into that closer role there and be dominant for the Phillies. Otherwise, they're going to be outside looking in again when they get to the playoffs, and they're going to be out of the World Series.
Want to get to a couple more things. Let's start with the NL Central, where the Cardinals, off their latest win, have been, kind of sneaky good. The Cubs obviously are continuing to lead that division, but playing mediocre ball of late. The Brewers have heated up despite yesterday's loss. The Cardinals obviously heating up as well. So as we look at futures in that division, is there value at the plus 550s for these next level teams, Milwaukee and St. Louis, or do you assume that Chicago hangs on?
Well, if you've been watching anything I've done for the last 3 months, it's been all Milwaukee at plus 550, plus 650, plus everything, because I just believe in that rotation. They're going to get Woodruff back. Mizorowski's terrific. They have Logan Henderson there, too, if they have another injury. They have depth of rotation. That's going to matter. Eventually, Peralta, Mizorowski, Woodruff, that's a pretty good threesome there. And they can go out there and acquire Eugenio Suarez to go play third base and be a bat in that lineup that they desperately need at that corner spot. So, to me, the Brewers are that team. I still don't believe in the Cubs pitching. The Cubs have been a fun story, but I don't think they know how to win yet. And I think that they pitching eventually when that offense slows down is going to come back to haunt them, unfortunately.
Joe, you want to bet Cal Raleigh to win MVP?
I do, just to spite him. You know what? Despite everybody else. You know why? Because Cal Raleigh's a catcher, and he is handling a pitching staff. He is hitting home runs. He's doing a lot. That gear is a lot to wear in the summertime, Adam.
It's true. It's he's shedding pounds at the same time. Right. Joe Pisapia, again on Twitter at Joe Pisapia and the number 17. Thanks, sir.
On June 25th at 7:30 p.m., ditch the guesswork. Ben Stevens, Kevin Walsh, James Young, and Tom Vecchio have your NBA draft betting coverage pick by pick, bet by bet, all night long. We got all the insights and expert analysis because betting blind isn't a strategy. Coverage starts at 7:30 p.m. on June 25th, only on SportsGrid.
Was the first time, I think, in Dodgers history that the ballpark was full in the first inning. Everybody was there to see Shohei Ohtani throw his first pitch as a Dodger, and I had mixed emotions about this for a few reasons. Number one, it was a reminder of, wow, this is so crazy, right? You're watching him hit 98, 99, even 100 on the radar gun going, this guy's not human. Nobody should be able to be this good of a hitter or this good of a pitcher.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
As we know, it's just we enter every year and it's like, is this the Ravens' time? Is this Lamar Jackson's turn? Can they get past the Chiefs and all of these other, stalwarts of the AFC? But it's always really about Kansas City when we're talking Baltimore.
This potentially, Adam, as I send it back to you, potentially is a game changer in that you get a very talented quarter at a discount price.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
Oklahoma City now becomes one of 4 NBA teams ever, one of 3 NBA champs ever to win at least 84 total regular season and postseason games.
It's just the beginning, Ben, and you just look at a team with, these guys at such a young age, and, Chet's got a team option, Ismael Dieng has a team option, Jalen Williams team option, Keyshawn Wallace team option. Hey, Ben, they're all coming back.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Few more minutes here on Newswire. Thanks to all of our guests. Again, Joe Pisapia, Gilbert McGregor. We had Calvin Wetzel as well, and Jacob Camenker, hitting a lot of different things. It's time now, though, for our last licks. Well, I suppose a congrats in advance to Daniel Gafford of the Mavericks because he intends to sign a 3-year, $60 million deal with the Mavs. As we know, elite finisher around the rim, great lob threat, really solid big with offensive promise. But I got to admit, little curious the deal. You know, he's going to be on the books for the next 4 years because he's making $14 million next year, and then the extension kicks in. And you also have Lively, and you also have AD, Anthony Davis, and oh, by the way, you'll be drafting Cooper Flagg. That's a lot of bigs, man, there in Dallas. I guess the I don't know, argument against what I'm talking about, though, is what we saw last year when none of them could stay healthy. So that remains something to watch, pardon me, going forward. But, hey, again, get your money while you can there, Daniel Gafford. Congrats to him. Also, a guy who probably cannot wait to poke fun at a whole long list of athletes coming up in mid-July, the 16th on ABC, the ESPY Awards. Comedian Shane Gillis, actor and comedian, if you watch Tires, they're on Netflix as well, is going to be hosting the show. It's going to be funny. It's going to be uncomfortable in all likelihood, and there's going to be probably a lot of uncomfortable moments. If you're familiar with his stand-up and you've watched his shows and you know his general demeanor, you see those Sunday conversations that he's done a little bit of late, this is someone who's going to have athletes, you know, probably cringing in their seats just a little bit, but you know what? I'm here for it. It's going to be a fun watch. And again, Shane Gillis is definitely one of the premier performers out there today in the comedy world. One more from the New York Mets, as if they couldn't be drawing quite enough attention from people in the first place. They have added a new player, as you can see there in the uniform from the Toronto Blue Jays, and that is a reliever, Richard Lovelady, who is gaining notice throughout the baseball community because he wants to go by Dickie Lovelady, which is a unique baseball name. I don't think we've ever had a name quite like Dickie Lovelady across the sport before, but probably if he goes out there, pitches even remotely well, he's going to be an instant fan favorite. Sometimes a name, folks, is just enough to put you over the top. So he doesn't want the full name. He doesn't want Richard. He wants Dickie Lovelady. And, you know, I don't know. I don't know if people are going to be out there and trying to buy jerseys that just put Dickie on the back as opposed to Lovelady. You know, you get those special first name jerseys out there. Some people have those things custom made. Might be able to get them in the team store. These things are what are in front of it. Anything to turn around the New York Mets, right? I mean, I am not the Mets fan that Joe Pisapia, our last guest, is, but anything that can, I don't know, add a little more excitement and air in that building, because we're past the times of the tiny trumpet and all of that. Now we need something new to latch onto for the Mets, and that, I suppose, is going to be Dickie. Another story, by the way, that has just come across on social media, is that the San Antonio Spurs are pursuing Kristaps Porzingis, which kind of puts an interesting bow on this show, or takes us full circle, I should say, because as we know, the Celtics are in not sell mode, but, you know, cost-saving mode, salary dumping mode, retooling mode, doing their best to stay competitive while getting under that second apron. We mentioned earlier the desire to becomes official in the coming days, get rid of Drew Holiday's contract, bring in Anthony Simons. It's going to happen. So you save upwards of around $5 million there on that second apron, but still 18 over. Moving a guy like Porzingis would do some real damage to moving in the right direction there as well. But what I wonder with San Antonio is, you know, this is a team, don't forget, and I don't know how likely it is, but has been connected to, could Giannis Antetokounmpo want to go there? I mean, this is why we keep having this conversation about the Eastern Conference being so wide open, is there are still dominoes to fall. One of them was, would Kevin Durant wind up in the East? He didn't, went to Houston. Is Giannis going to leave Milwaukee? And if he does, is he going to stay in the East? Does he go elsewhere? If Milwaukee all of a sudden doesn't have Lillard next year and Giannis leaves and winds up with a team like San Antonio in the West becomes that much more, well, compelling for sure, but the East, a far weaker conference. So again, we want to thank all of our guests. A lot of good stuff that we'll be exploring throughout the week here on NewsWire. I want to thank Frank and Luke, of course, making the show possible. I'll be in for Craig Mish all throughout the week, so we have a lot more to cover in the days to come. Make sure you join us here on NewsWire, 11 a.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday. Tons more coming up on the grid this afternoon and tonight. Go nowhere.